me try and show you how we get some of these sounds. First of all, none of them exist as a particular sound as they would on an electronic organ. There's no magic button marked trumpet or violin or drums. You have to build every sound. And to start to build these sounds, you have to start with something pretty simple. And here are the simple things we start with. There are 5 of them. The simplest one of all is something that any lab technician must have seen at one time or another. It's called a sine wave. It's very smooth, very flute-like. A little bit more complicated wave is called sawtooth. And it's called sawtooth because on an oscilloscope screen it looks just like a sawtooth. And this one is a little richer, a little reedier, and it resembles a lot of sounds found on home electronic organs. Something in between those last two, and a very useful sound indeed, is something called triangular, and it's kind of a pointed sine wave. So you can see it's a little brighter than a sine wave. This one's called pulse wave, and I'm just going to show you how it swings into a thing called square wave. It's up, down, just like a switch. If you flip a switch, you're making a pulse wave. If it's an even off, on, then it looks on an oscilloscope very symmetrical, and it's called a square wave. And if I take the time that it's on and make it different from the time that it's off, it changes quality. Listen to it. Shifts interior. It's a very useful sound. The last of which is probably the least useful, although you'd never want to be without it. It's very colorful, very coloristic. In its pure form, it sounds like surf or a steam sound. It's called white noise. Now I'll patch this up here into one of my output modules and try and show you how with these primitive sounds we start to get some very musical sounding things. First of all, here's a sawtooth wave that's coming out of an oscillator, going into a mixer, coming up into what's called a filter, which is going to remove parts of the sound, either the top or the bottom part, much like bass and treble controls do on your high fidelity system. And by hitting a note on the keyboard now, I'm connected up so I'll hear that one sound. It's a very low sound. It's very bright. If I manually turn this knob, you'll listen to the sound get considerably duller. Here it gets very dull down here. It's very bright here. Instead of doing this manually, I can do it automatically with what's called an envelope generator. It generates the envelope being this type of motion that I'm shaping the tone with. So I'll do it this way. And that can be speeded up till we almost start hearing a plucked string. If we turn that around and make it open up instead of closing, it does this, which was quite a surprise when I first heard it. Has almost a trumpet-like quality or trombone quality in this range. And I think the best way to show this is a little excerpt from the first album. You'll hear a trumpet imitation solo, and then you'll hear several of these put together to show the feeling of an ensemble. And they were all built with the refinement of this thing that I've just shown you now. Now the ensemble. Let's show you how one of these sounds might be laid in to a piece. I have threaded up on the 8-track machine, which is where other voices have been collected already, several of the parts of a piece of music which is on the new album. This is the Bach 4th Brandenburg. And the second movement was pretty much played at tempo, one element at a time. The sound that I'm going to use will be for the solo part, which was originally given to a solo violin. It will be dubbed in only in those sections on the score where it's not doubling the rest of the string orchestra, so that in the tutti sections we'll let the full orchestra carry it, and that'll make a change of color when the solo part comes in. It's a little bit of editorializing on Bach. I don't think he'd mind. In this case, let's build a sound that's rather dull on the beginning. I can make this have a little bit hotter attack, and add some vibrato. Tone it down. The vibrato comes in a little after the note sounds. Delay this note a little bit longer. And by patching in another envelope controller, which will now take the oscillator that's supplying the tremolo and speed it up during the duration of the sound, the vibrato will start slow and get quicker. Don't want to overdo it though. We'll get one of those ghastly electronic organ type sounds. Alright, tuning now. I have a 440 oscillator. Take off the vibrato, it's easier. Okay, we're in tune. Everything sounds like it's about right. I'll start the 8-track, and you'll hear all the other components of this score, and I'll add in the solo.